Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today I decided to wear some clothes that resembles a lot of the clothes from Cliff Booth from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is the film I'm going to discuss with you about. I thought it would be nice to basically try out some new clothes and get a little bit of the style of Brad Pitt's character in that movie because he's super duper utterly cool. Despite the fact that my t-shirt is not a champion one, but I found this really nice one of my own, which is the Sonic the Hedgehog one, which I really love and adore. And it's one of my favourites, and that is the reason why I'm wearing this. And I'm thinking like, yeah, trying to fit the good style within the film in order to do this with you. But it doesn't, this on the other hand doesn't belong to me, it belongs to my brother. And I know he's gonna literally eat me alive for this, but hey, Joss, if you're listening to this right here, come and fucking get me.
Every time I close my eyes, something small within me dies. Can't say if it's dark or bright, but it's all I've ever known. And when I sleep alone.
So, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is obviously a lot of reviews have been out there, whether it is high or low. It's almost an incredibly, somewhat bubblingly divisive movie in that regard because it's not the ninth film for one. For the first things first, it is not the ninth film written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. No, even if he himself may consider that it is his ninth film, but it's not because Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 are two movies put into the same story. It's one story put into two movies, right? And the other reason why it's not his ninth film, but in fact his 10th film, because he even said that if there was a Kill Bill Volume 3, then what does that make of Kill Bill Volume 2? That's his 5th film. Kill Bill Volume 2 is his 5th movie. One story, two movies. Released two separate times in the same year, in cinemas. Two movies. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is his 10th film. Let's be very, very clear on that. Anyhows, what do I think of it? The first thing is first, I fucking love Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I absolutely adore that movie. And usually and it's in fact, coming to think of it, one of his most, to me, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the equivalent of what Fantasia is to Walt Disney. Or 2001 is to Kubrick in that regard. Or what is maybe The Tree of Life is to Terrence Malick. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is, I can sort of see why it's a divisive film in that regard, because it's not your stereotypical Quentin Tarantino movie in that retrospect, even though it is very essential Tarantino. But on the other hand, it's his most dreamy movie. It's a callback to his other movies without his movies being in there in that regard. For instance, there is not the pop dialogue, but on the other hand, there is, but it's so relaxed and so unfocusedly relaxed that you sort of just let the whole film swing through. And that is what I mean by it being incredibly dreamy. It's his most hangout movie. It is his most chilled out movie, without a doubt. And for my first reaction when I saw this movie on the cinemas, in the case of Quentin Tarantino, I usually get a reaction where I somewhat know immediately what to think of this film. Whether it's Django Unchained or Hateful Eight, I already get an emotional reaction that says yeah, hey, this film is excitingly amazing and I absolutely adore it. In the case of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I was left with bubbles in my mind in a way, the sort of same way as I did when I left watching Drive by Refn. But then I started to think about more and more of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and the more I thought about it, the more I somewhat liked it even more, right? But I had to see it again because there was something that I was not quite connecting or clicking with in the movie. So I saw it again in the cinemas, and this time I got it. And the result is a beautiful, stunning, almost masterpiece in that regard. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, in one word, is a beautiful film. It's beautiful. It is a beautiful, relaxed, rewatchable multiple times type of movie and it's not trying hard in any sense of regard. It's a dreamy movie, and unlike other movies set in the 60s or in that era, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is arguably one of the most detailed, most realistic, believable films that I have seen made in films that are set back in the 60s. And that has got highly to do with the cinematography. It's all drenched in sunlight. And the thing is, unlike series like Mad Men or other films set in the 60s, in like J. Edgar, I think, that really average Clint Eastwood movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a film that is profoundly, and I mean profoundly, optimistic. It's an optimistic, feel-good movie. And it's also an incredibly, and I mean incredibly, melancholic movie. The ending of that movie, right, which I will not spoil anything, is that first it comes across as cartoonish and giddyish and somewhat over the top, right? Which is the reason why I think this film doesn't really deserve its 18 rating. It's got goofy violence in it, yes, right? But it's very tongue-in-cheek. And the fact that people are shocked by this, I'm like, really? I mean, it's not as far off as violent as, say, Game of Thrones or The Walking Dead or all these other zombie apocalyptic movies with 10 times more extreme violence, right? It's nowhere near like the violence of, say, like in Gaspar Noé's movies or Amat Escalante's movies or even the, Park Chan-wook's movies for that matter. It is violent, but it's very tongue-in-cheek and cartoonish to the point that it's so unreal. It's very, like, comic booky violence. And the fact that it's an 18 for that matter, I'm finding it like, a little bit too much in that regard. But still, it's a really fun, entertaining movie to watch. But the ending is profoundly sad if you know the story about Sharon Tate and the Manson family. Because it ends like a fairy tale, and you just get a strong vibe. Like, the genius as well about it is that at first my reaction was like, meh, why that ending? Like, why did it happen this way? Can it not be a little bit more edgier and intense in that regard? But then I realised, no, it is absolutely necessary, that ending, for that sort of film, because it feels like, yes, this is very Tarantino-esque, but there's something profoundly sad behind it, especially with the music at the end and the terrific choice by Tarantino in that regard, because there is something profoundly sad because of what we know in real life about what actually happened in that time period. And it's not just about Sharon Tate and the Manson family. It's also a love letter to the swinging 60s and 1969, and of course, like as we know Tarantino in person, an extreme love for movies. This movie is a dream to literally witness on the big screen. It's a film that you need to be seeing on the big screen, but it's like going through a train tour of 1969. We follow through these characters without it being focused much on plot detail. And for a Tarantino movie to do that is unusual, which is the reason why it's getting a divisive response. It's not focused necessarily on plot, and it's really like loose in its form of narrative. Whether it is Leonardo DiCaprio's terrific performance as the incredibly vulnerable Rick Dalton as an actor, or an actor losing his heydays running out of steam, and so it has a little bit of significance to Tarantino's worry over Netflix and the digital revolution of cinema. And then we've got the absolutely terrific, one of his best performance ever, aside from Fight Club, Tyler Durden, who for literally for the first time he gets an Oscar for. Brad Pitt as Cliff Booth, the coolest character I have seen since Ryan Gosling's Driver in Drive. I swear down, his character is so fucking cool, and he is world-weary, he's wry, he's smooth as shit, basically, and he is incredibly generous, incredibly calm, and just flat out cool, and he deserved that award at the Oscars. It's one of those rare moments where the Oscars give it to an actor for the right film. Unlike DiCaprio for The Revenant, in which he should have got it for The Wolf of Wall Street, What's Eating Gilbert Grape, The Departed, Shutter Island, and the list goes on with DiCaprio, but he got it too late for the wrong movie. The Revenant, an somewhat overrated movie, in my opinion anyway. Brad Pitt, on the other hand, gets it for the right movie, for the right role, from the right director, writer-director. Thank you, the Academy Awards, for that. But yeah, Brad Pitt is excellent, DiCaprio is excellent, Margot Robbie is really good as well. Yes, people, radical lefties are complaining about the fact that she hasn't got many lines about that film, but they're missing the entire point. It's not about that in this case. Sharon Tate, the character that Margot Robbie, that she portrays, right? And I've seen some of the interviews and seeing how she is like as a person, right? Margot Robbie not only physically resembles her, but also performs her very light, somewhat coquette, character-like personality. Comes across, because Sharon Tate as a person comes across as this sort of girl who, like Marilyn Monroe in that regard, the way she talks is very light and soft and very sweet and innocent. She comes across as a young girl who's half asleep, pretty much, you see. And Margot Robbie portrays that perfectly, and it wouldn't have been the same case if somebody like Jennifer Lawrence would have done that in that performance. Margot Robbie is terrific as Sharon Tate. Even if people are complaining that she hasn't got a lot of lines. But it doesn't matter. She just gives a strong vibe, a dreamlike vibe to that character. But the whole film plays out like one fever dream of being taken back in time in 1969. And that is a rare treat to see, especially in cinemas in movies these days. And especially in movies set in that period. Because it's got also something to do with the cinematography from Robert Richardson. It looks like it was shot back in 1969, in the days when Midnight Cowboy or The Graduate were released. Or Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, or even Rosemary's Baby for that matter. It looks like a film made in that time period. And that is something that cinema movies are not really showing us much in this day and age. Even if they are trying to be as precise as possible with this time period, Once Upon a Time nails that one thing that other movies don't because of the way it looks from its cinematography. Even if the set design is amazing, it needs to be solid with the cinematography, and it's fucking nailed in this case. And that is why I completely was swooped away by it a second time round. Even the first time round, I didn't quite fully grasp it. But the second time I did, I really, really did. And so everybody in this movie is terrific, including Mike Moh as an underrated performance as Bruce Lee. That is probably the most convincing portrayal I have ever seen of Bruce Lee in any movie ever. Mike Moh, terrific work, mate. But yeah, so altogether, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a beautifully stunning movie that will have, without a doubt, shelf life. It's my favourite Tarantino movie of the decade, beating The Hateful Eight and Django Unchained, right? Even though if I absolutely adore those movies, but it's up there in my favourites, and I absolutely love this movie. I love, fucking love Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And that is the reason why I would give that movie a 5 out of 5, without a doubt. A beautiful, stunning, sunlight-drenched driven movie that I would watch again and again and again with mates. It's a hangout movie, it's a date movie. It's what I want to see in movies. So if you enjoy my video, put a like, please subscribe, put a comment, and yes, au revoir, arrivederci, have a good one, ciao.